You're listening to Keith Engle, the host of TGI Sports Talk on the National Streaming Sports Roku channel.
Football season is here, and SeatGeek is my go-to for buying tickets. Now, with SeatGeek, every single ticket is backed with their buyer guarantee. We've all had plans change, and when you can't make it to the big game, SeatGeek has you covered. They're the only ticketer that allows you to return your tickets ahead of the event for credit with SeatGeek swaps. So when things come up, I know that my tickets won't go to waste. So what are you waiting for? Download the SeatGeek app to maximize your possibilities and shop live events with confidence.
Good evening, everybody. Keith Engle here with TGI Sports Talk's College Football Huddle. We're back in the studio after being away, I guess just for one show of the College Football Huddle, which we did on the fly on the Carnival Venezia last week. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed some of the impromptu shows we did. A little rough. Sometimes the going's a little rough. Some of the logistics are a little rough. We did the best we could, but we had fun doing it because we enjoy the interaction with you guys. You too, Danny. I was taking it rough from Danny. I was reading all his comments, Danny. Anyway, we got a lot to talk about tonight, man. The first college football poll's out. Not that it means anything. We've got 5 more to come. So I wouldn't read too much into what we're going to see here now. I'm reading comments about, how can Ohio State be ranked above Oregon? Who cares? It doesn't, not Oregon, Georgia. Who cares? It doesn't matter right now, okay? What's going to matter later on is the buys, and those will take care of themselves with the conference championships. What will matter are the, 10, 11, 12, the teams fighting for there. We got about 18 teams in play right now. That's why this college football huddle is so exciting. Anyway, I want to welcome everybody watching tonight on TGI Sports Talk's Facebook page, our YouTube page, our X page. We're back on X. Also, we're live on Roku on the National Streaming Sports channel. If you haven't downloaded that, please do so and watch my giant head in giant living color. DDH, thumbs up to you. A quick shout out to Ralph Williams at RWM Media. Ralph does some great stuff out of Pittsburgh, specifically the Sports Corner that he does with Smoke and Jim Frazier every Tuesday from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern. I've been on that show and have a lot of fun with Ralph and Jim. Shout out to some of the groups, obviously, that are so helpful to the show and getting the word out. We've had some trouble with sharing the groups recently, and I apologize to the groups who really appreciate the content that we provide, but the Nazis at Facebook are at work. What can I tell you? And then they've been throttling my ability to share quite a bit. So I try to get to the ones that I can, and then thank you, Facebook. Anyway. Quick shout out to our normal group of guys. John Gonzalez at the Sports Authorities. Tremendous group. John does some great stuff, and he works security at MetLife too, by the way, for the Giants games. And I think the Jet games as well. Flo and the gang at Bottom Line Sports. Flo often jumps into some of the shows, and Flo and the gang do some great podcasting of their own at the Bottom Line Sports, which airs live on Let's Talk Sports. We're also very good. My voice just got very high there. Let's Talk Sports was also a great friend of this show here. And we appreciate their help, and all the college sports shows. Ken Krause at Golf Buds Sports and More. So who's with us tonight so far? CA's with us. Good day. Danny Fuller. Let's hear it now. Committee say a 3-loss team. Well, definitely. I think it's probably a no-brainer right now, Danny, the way things have gone. I wasn't going to jump right into the poll, but I think it's going to be. When you look at teams like A&M, LSU, Ole Miss, Alabama, all with 2 losses. Anybody else? They're probably the only teams with 2 losses I would say will still get in. have a shot to get in. Not a lot of them are going to get in. We said there'd be 6. Danny, I think if we talked about it, there'd be 6, as many as 6 2-loss teams, and that's still within the realm of possibility. I mean, every week, again, I talked about this Sunday. I've been talking about this a lot recently. Every week, these games change the dynamic of the playoff tremendously. In the next 4 or 5 weeks, we'll do the same. So let me just read this one more time. Let's hear it now. Committee saying a 3-loss team can get in. Well, again, depending on the records, they might have to. I mean, take a look. Think about it. Ole Miss beats Georgia this weekend, right? And then Ole Miss runs a table and loses the SEC championship game, if that's possible. I have to look at the standings. We'll go through the standings in a little bit. But let's just say that happens. They're probably getting in the playoff with 3 losses. I don't know if I can think. I guess a 3-loss Ohio State team could get in. They could lose to Indiana. Then they could lose again to Oregon, maybe in the in that case, they probably wouldn't get in the Big Ten championship game, right? Indiana might be better off running to losing to Ohio State, not getting in the Big Ten championship game, and not getting that season-ending loss. There's a lot. I think the conference championships, and they're never going to go away. We talked about this a little bit Sunday, I think, on both the Big Football Show and my own show, the Sunday Stream of Consciousness. The conference championship games won't go away because they make money. But I think they should. I think the regular season champion should get in, because you may very well see situations where teams would rather avoid playing in the championship game and getting that season-ending loss. Daddy's the best, James. James, big game. By the way, we're going to talk about the games this week, and not as many big games this week, but LSU's got a big one at home against Bama. This is probably an elimination game, unless Danny, it's going to take a perfect storm, I think, for a 3-loss team to get in. And if a 3-loss team gets in, John DeLon probably shows up again. Again, we hope our friend John DeLon is okay. We haven't seen him the entire season. So James is LSU. Big game this weekend. And Danny's wild. We love Danny on his show. We love Danny on all the shows. Giants. Don't miss a chance. Oh, you don't miss a chance. Alabama, LSU for sure. Big weekend. Listen, there's some big games, and we'll talk about all of them. Georgia, Ole Miss. Again, maybe not definitely an elimination game for Ole Miss. They're creeping back up the standings a bit. They got as high as, where are they right now? They're 16 right now. Not dead in the water. Again, there's so much football to play. This first poll, it doesn't mean that much. Colorado, Texas Tech is a big game in the Big 12. Who would have thought? Colorado still in the playoff mix. Army still in a playoff mix. They're going to need some help from Boise State and the teams Boise State plays. But those are the biggest games of the weekend, right? BYU at Utah. Utah not playing great football, but BYU is, and Utah's kind of had BYU's number recently. But there's some other decent games. South Carolina Vandy ought to be a good game. Who else? Navy, South Florida. Navy's not out. Probably are out. Did they get any says complete rankings? What's that give me? Oh, I see. Anyway, what else we got here? Patrick Bernard, I see here. I want to say hello if I can get to you. Comment. Hello, Patrick. Good to have you with us tonight. Patrick, did you have a birthday recently? I don't know why. So I feel like you had a birthday recently. If you did, happy birthday. If you didn't, happy birthday whenever it is. OSU already lost to Oregon, so they can play. They can only play again in the conference championship game. I thought that's what I said, and I apologize if that's not what I said. I think I said what I was talking about was Indiana beats Ohio State. and then Ohio State gets to the championship game against Oregon. Is that even possible? I don't know. If I look at the Big Ten standings, let's just assume for a second. Because again, I think there's instances where it would be best for them to lose. Indiana's going to get, if they beat Ohio State, they're going to get in a championship game, most likely, right? Oregon's most likely in already. Penn State, you saw last week, one more time, James Franklin, and I think people are starting to see it. And if Penn State fans are happy going 10-2 every year, now you can make a 12-team playoff and go out early. You can't run a 1982 offense in today's day and age. You just can't do it. You got to be able to throw the ball down the field. You got to get creative around the end zone. That last, they were inside the 2 or 3 yard line twice. Came away with no points. The only points they scored all game was on defense, with touchdowns, I should say. James Franklin and this offensive coordinator and offensive staff are playing football like it's 1982, and they got Herschel Walker in their backfield. Can't be that. There's James Franklin falls apart. 1-10. 1-10. What's his record against top 10 teams? Even worse. He's about 2-17 or something like that. If you're going to beat Ohio State, this was the time to do it. Ohio State did not play a great game. They were opportunistic. They played a great goal line stand there in the, I think it was the fourth quarter. But you can't throw the ball up the gut 3 times and then throw the ball over the middle just like it's 1982 again. Definitely an elimination game. Unless things go crazy. I mean, let's look at the SEC a little bit. Since we're talking about that, we got 2 big games in the SEC. Georgia and Texas A. I'm sorry, my wedding ring is gone to the jeweler because it's white gold, and it's, if you know anything about, I didn't know any of this until my wife taught me, by the way. There's no such thing really as white gold. It's dipped. So the gold was coming through my white gold, and she had just picked up some jewelry that they'd prepared for her. So she took my ring to get redipped. And all day long, I'm like this. So it's not with me. Anyway, you guys don't care about that. You got 5-1 Georgia, Texas A&M still there, even despite the bad loss to South Carolina last week. Congrats to Neil Bush if you're with us today. And Tennessee and Texas, and LSU, all with 1 loss. You could see two lost teams in the SEC championship game, conference losses. It's possible. Ole Miss would have definitely with an elimination game. I'm really looking forward to the Bama LSU game, and right now I like LSU. James, we'll go through we'll look at the standings and give you my picks as well. My bets last week, I bet Ohio State. I bet the over in Ole Miss and Arkansas, which was easy. And then I stupidly bet A&M. I was going to bet the over in SMU, Texas, and I switched off to Texas A&M because the guy, I'm sorry, Shannon, if you're watching, and it's my own fault. I'm on a cruise. I still have my phone. I could have looked this up. I see Texas A&M only -3 at home. Well, they weren't home. That's my own stupid fault. Yeah, Patrick, I apologize. I'm guessing you, Patrick, to my comments about James Franklin, cannot be happy that this team is not contending for national championships. James Franklin's a good football coach, but is he a guy to get a major program over the hump? Again, you could be 10-2 probably forever at Penn State. You'll make the playoff, whatever, every couple of years, maybe every 3 years, 2 out of every 3 years, whatever. But you're probably not going to contend for a championship ever with James Franklin there. I'm sorry. I've been on this for like 3 years, 4 years, maybe since I started the show. SMU, listen, this team, the only team that SMU has lost to, if I'm not mistaken, CA, is, who did they lose to? Kansas State? Am I right? Where's my rankings here? And by the way, why do I have two? Dummy. That's me I'm talking to. Just so, no, don't anybody get offended. The time for being offended is near. Won't be by me. Oh, they lost to BYU. Undefeated BYU team. That's the only team they lost to. 18-15, by the way. SMU might be the most underrated team in the country, or were, by the way, because they have moved up to number 13, I believe, in this pool, or this poll. 13, right behind Boise State. They're sneaking up on people. They dismantled a pretty good Pittsburgh team, not a great team. They're right now atop the ACC along with Miami. Miami needing another big second half. This team is looking for a loss. As a Miami fan, yes, a convict fan. Obviously, more ways than one. You guys can read what you want into that, but I'll give a little golf clap for some of them. Yes, that's possible. I think we're talking about two lost teams in the the SEC championship game. It's still possible. Again, I'd have to look. I don't know who plays who the rest of the season without looking at every individual. What was I going to say? Every individual schedule, but Notre Dame now has moved themselves up there with a bye last week and a big win over Navy. They've got Army coming up in a few weeks. They got FSU this week, which should be a big game, but obviously is not. Notre Dame hurt by the A&M win, but helped by LSU. Louisville just just trashing Clemson last week. That's a good boost for Notre Dame and makes that Louisville game, that Louisville win, look that much better. So Notre Dame now controls their own destiny, I would say. Just win out and they're in. Can't lose. I do not think, I still will say this, doesn't look like Kenny's with us. I know Kenny continues to argue with me, and this might be a good time to talk about it, even though we got 5 more of these polls to go. I don't think Notre Dame gets in with a second loss. I don't think they're a team that can get in with 2 losses. There's too many SEC teams and Big Ten teams that will have 2 losses. And they're going to be better losses than what Notre Dame has had. Linda's with us, hoping that James is here. Everybody should be wearing their Wednesday best for the Reverend Keith. 3-17 versus the top 10. Thank you, Danny. Yeah, SMU, 18-15. And I got to believe that game was at BYU. Am I right? Find out real quick. I don't think I clicked on. Oh, there we go. I clicked on BYU. No, they were at SMU. Okay, they were playing them at home. That's a pretty good loss. That is a team with 1 loss that's got the best 1 loss probably in the country. No, that's not fair. Ohio State lost to Oregon. All right. Well, whatever. It's not a good coming out of my mouth. Not so good once it hit the microphone. NIU versus Western Michigan playing right now, as CA points out to us, as Ohio's playing Kent State. There's no worse team in the country than Kent State. They may be worse than UMass, by the way. That's a lot. Northern Illinois, by the way, only 1-3 in the MAC, 4-4 overall. That game, that loss still could come back to haunt this, and that's why 2 losses will get Notre Dame not in the tournament, because that loss is not going to look very good at that point in time. And whoever they could lose to from here on out, it's not going to be a good loss. Tomorrow evening, App State, Coastal Carolina, entertaining game. Always. Florida Atlantic and East Carolina. we got football from Tuesdays now pretty much on. Were there games last night or not? I guess there were. I guess the MAC is now playing Wednesdays. I thought somebody played on Tuesday nights now all the time, too. As long as it's not your birthday suit, James, that's all we care about, buddy. Yes. Wore my Dodger blue just for Danny today. Actually, not so much. Everything else is still in a wash from cruising. Yes, there are days you need a wind shirt because it gets chilly at night sometimes. And when you're sailing out of New York, it's chilly the first day. And certainly coming back, that last day and night are a little chilly. So we had a little rain one of the days we were on an excursion. So we need a little top to keep the t-shirt dry. I don't know what I'm talking about. Who were the other big winners and losers last week? Big losers? Clemson. Oh, my God. Clemson had done such a good job rebuilding their resume. They're done. All done. K-State, big loser. Pittsburgh, big loser. Big winners last week. Indiana again with another big game. They get Michigan this week. They'll get them at home. Probably should win. This team should get to Ohio State on the 23rd undefeated. One of the great stories in college football this year. Ohio State with a big win. Oh, Penn State's the other big loser I had over on this side. SMU, big winner. This team, they've played two quarterbacks this year. They've had some injuries, but they run the ball against everybody. They play good, well, not great defense, but opportunistic defense, if you will. I like that over in that game. Man, I can't believe I didn't bet it. So nice win for them. Georgia. Listen, Georgia struggled too much against Florida. I'm not in love with this Florida team. I think we talked about it Sunday. I know they're second, third, however you want to look at it right now. We'll look at the let's pull this up right now and we'll take a quick look at the rankings and the teams that would be in the playoff if we were to play today. Where are we? So number one in the first college football poll, Oregon. Second, Ohio State. Georgia. Third, Miami. 4. Not a lot to argue about there. Maybe you can say Georgia belongs over Ohio State. Listen, Ohio State only lost to the best team in the country. So I'm okay with Ohio State being second. Texas is 5th. Penn State 6. I did say they'd be 6. Danny, I know we had some discussion about whether Tennessee and BYU would be ahead of them. I thought Penn State would stay 6. Indiana surprised me a little bit moving up as far as they did. If you look, because if you compare it to the AP poll, they're also 8. And pretty much all these are the same as the AP poll, except for Georgia and Ohio State being flipped so far. Indiana is 8 in both polls. They had jumped up 5 spots. I thought they might be in the 9 range. I thought Notre Dame might move up to 9 or 10. They're still at 10 in both polls. BYU's at 9 in both polls. Alabama's 11. Boise State, SMU, all the same. Right now you would have Oregon. Again, we have to make assumptions. Oregon, Georgia, Miami, and BYU at 9. So don't rule Boise State out of getting a bye yet. The Big Ten leaders at 9. And listen, if BYU wins out, they're going to be ranked higher than Boise State. They're going to move into the top, they'll probably move into the top 4 or 5 in the rankings if they stay undefeated. I don't know if that will happen. So there's your 4 byes. That leaves you Ohio State, Texas. I need 8 more teams, right? Oh, I'm sorry. One of them is Boise State. So That's your automatic burst, the 5 automatic bursts and the 4 buys. So after that, you get Ohio State. So we got to have 7 more teams. Ohio State, Texas, Penn State, Tennessee, Indiana, Notre Dame, Alabama. Alabama gets that last bid right now. On the bubble, you've got teams like SMU, ready to pounce. Texas A&M still, even with that bad loss last week, they only dropped a few spots. I'm surprised. At least in this, that's one of the big differences here. A&M fell all the way to, they only fell to 15 in the AP poll. So anyway, SMU, A&M, LSU, Ole Miss, maybe Iowa State on the bubble. I don't know if I can go farther than that. Maybe Colorado plays their way in, but not the at-large bubble. I'm pretty much talking at-large bubble. Get a few teams that could still surprise and win the conference championships, I suppose. You got some teams that can't afford to lose. And you got teams that can play their way into buys yet. Get to some comments here before I move on. Friday night high school playoffs start, however. CFL at Cal. Don't know. Oh, I see. That's actually, I wrote that game down. That's Cal Wake Forest, actually. Oh, I see. I see what happened. Cal Wake Forest, Iowa. Iowa. Rice, Memphis, Lake Game, New Mexico, and San Diego State. It's some good football. Every night of the week now, you can find a decent game. Arkansas, Nebraska, not nearly as good as projected. I like Nebraska to be relevant again, not contend for a national championship. I thought they'd be a team that would be contend maybe for third place in the Big Ten. That's not going to happen. Arkansas, I think, is better than expected. Hartman, their coach, was probably on one of the hottest seats in the country. Still might be if they bottom out, Danny. But let's just look at where those two teams stand right now since you brought them up. The Big Ten, Nebraska sits at 2-4 in the conference. That kills them, right? 5-4 overall. They're making progress. They've got a true freshman quarterback. This team will be good. Matt Rule is building a program, and I think you'll see Nebraska. I think they're going to be a bowl team, obviously. But I think it's time that this team needs to take a bigger step forward, and it's not going to come till next year now, most likely. And speaking of Arkansas, going back down to the SEC. See, I would not consider Arkansas again, I guess they're 3-3 in conference after a really bad season last year. Hartman, there was a lot of talk he'd get fired last year. If I'm saying their coach right. I feel like I'm not saying the coach's name right. Got him right here. Hold on, because I know he's on a hot seat. So let's find him right here. Sam Pittman. Sorry, Sam Pittman instead of Hartman. He's on the hottest seat of all. It was when the season started. Most likely, he's moved down that list a bit. And this team sits at what I say they were 3-3 in conference. They got an interesting game against Oklahoma, I think, this week. Isn't that who's, I think, Oklahoma and Arkansas playing? Oklahoma's a disappointment already. What are they, 5-4 overall? Again, to me, I think that's better than expected, Danny. Now, I will say a win they had at Oklahoma State doesn't look so good now as the bottom's falling out on Mike Gundy. People who watch me and watch this show know I'm a big Mike Gundy fan. Things have started to spin out of control at Oklahoma State. He, along with James Franklin at Penn State, got into it a little bit with some student athletes after the games, and he apologized for his. It wasn't a huge confrontation, but he apologized for it. But Mike Gundy's been at Oklahoma State a long time now. The days of guys being at programs 30 years is likely over. And there's a shelf life for all of these guys. And Mike Gundy might very well have reached it at Oklahoma State. And he's not a guy that, even though I think he's had some really good success, considering where he's coaching, I'm not sure Mike Gundy's another guy who gets a power conference job if he were to leave this one, either by his own volition or, mutually agreeing with the school, spend more time with his family. Penn State stayed 6 only because of its name. Possibly, yes, Danny. But again, these things all come into play. I'm not saying they should. Quite frankly, Notre Dame, who again, I like to root for Notre Dame. I think football's better when Notre Dame. I picked Notre Dame to win a national championship, partly because of the odds that I was given. When I'm betting future bets, and Danny, you can give me your thoughts on this. I'm looking for a really good bargain, right? And by getting into signing up for a couple of different sports books, I got I think a total of a $300 bet for the potential of a $7,000 return on a Notre Dame championship. So we took that as a buy low. Are we watching college football now for the pure entertainment because we know who the Final Four are going to be? I don't think we do know who the Final Four are going to be. So you think, Linda, that Miami's a lock? I'm a Miami fan. I in no way, shape, or form think Miami would run away with the ACC if we're talking about the conference tournament start or the conference championship game being played this weekend. If it was playing SMU, I don't think that's a guarantee. I don't think Georgia is a guarantee at all. Georgia has not played good football for a lot of the year. They struggled again against not a good Florida team. Maybe a little better than we expected, but not a good Florida team. Carson Beck, to me, has probably been the biggest single disappointment of the hyped players for Heisman conversation this year. He's led some great comebacks, had some big second halves, but many of those times he's put his team in that position to have to come up with those heroics. I don't think it's a guarantee that Oregon or Ohio State stays where they are with Indiana playing as well as they are. So we're not watching just for entertainment. You have teams. Here are the teams outside of the top. I'll bet you there's at least 6 teams I can come up with that could finish in the top 4. Outside of teams in the top 4. Texas, easily. Penn State, maybe not. I'll leave Penn State out of this conversation. Tennessee, if they were to win the SEC. Indiana, even if they win the Big Ten, they're going to be in the top 4. BYU, if they win out, probably will be in the top 4. Notre Dame, believe it or not, at 10, if things break all right with some of these teams in the SEC and Big Ten in front of them, could finish in the top 4. So there's a lot of movement that can happen all the way to the top of this poll. And there'll be tons of movement because there's not only 4 teams that get in. Remember, Linda, there's 12. And there's going to be all kinds of movement, not just in that top 4, but in that whole 12. And that's, let's say we know Oregon's in. We know Ohio State's in, most likely. We know they're in. Oh, and I think you're telling me we know who the Final 4 will be. I'm sorry, I misread your question too, I think, Linda. You're telling me that we already know, I guess, that Oregon, Ohio State, Georgia, and Miami will be the Final 4? We don't even know what the matchups will be to say. There's no way to predict if you're saying the Final 4 of the 12 that get in. We don't know that. 7 teams lost in the top 25 last week. 2 weeks ago, 4 teams lost in the top 10. All of these teams that get in, and I'll include Boise State in this conversation, all of these teams are capable of winning or losing their first game they play. Every single one of them. The 12 that get in this tournament. I'm going to tell you that every single one of them will be capable of winning at least one game. Boise State will probably depend on the matchup that they get. And they'd be better off if they weren't getting a bye, probably, because they'd have an easier matchup, theoretically, in the first round. But to me, there's a lot of exciting football coming up the next 4 or 5 weeks. And if you think we're just watching for entertainment, you're wrong, man. Or ma'am. God knows I don't want to offend anybody. Sorry, Linda. Hell, SMU, we got some great stories. There are probably, I'm going to go to Iowa State, 17 teams still alive to get in the playoff. This is why every week matters. And when you get to 12, every one of them will have a chance to win or lose. And so that means when I say every team's got a chance to lose, that means we do not know for sure who the Final Four will be. I'm pretty sure Ohio State will be there, but I'm pretty sure Ohio State and Oregon will not be there together. I could not tell you who the other Final Four will be. I think Notre Dame will still be there. They've learned how to use Riley Leonard. Took them a loss to do it. So again, it's much more than entertainment value. I would like this game. Indiana's playing great football, but Ohio State's really good. They're going to have the game at home. I think it'll be close. I just don't think. And again, I got 2 weeks to make up my mind. So, right? Terrell, 17 days. It's going to be one of the most interesting matchups of the year. Indiana hasn't played the hardest schedule, but they've blown people out. Blown them off the field most every week. Signetti is the most significant coaching hire this year. And he basically said at his press conference he would be. A lot of fun. Great story. Not surprised you have that opinion, Danny, and I don't think you'd be surprised to hear me say I don't totally disagree with that. Because Miami's defense is not good, has not been good. This is a team that's been searching for a loss for like 5 weeks now. If I had to give you, a couple of teams that Miami fits that bill, Penn State might fit that bill. And as good as BYU's played, I still don't know about BYU. I still don't know. But, yeah, I'm not going to give you a big argument on that because Miami's played on the edge pretty much the last 6 games. Rankings will change next week, most likely. I mean, again, you could see, I think Ole Miss, time we got. I think they change. How much will they change this week? I think Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin, he gets off that James Franklin train and he gets a win against Georgia, at home. I think Jackson Dart played one of the, again, I know they were playing Arkansas, but Georgia is teetering. Georgia has not been nearly the team they were the last 4 years. They've lost a lot of talent. They're still one of the best teams in the country, obviously, but they can be beaten on any given Saturday. I think Ole Miss is battling for their life. Jackson Dart's playing really good football. I think Lane Kiffin gets over that hump. That changes his poll. This changes his poll dramatically. I mean, let me look at let's look at that. How many of these teams? I can look at this right now real quick. I've got the Oregon will not lose. They're playing Maryland. Purdue and Ohio State won't lose. Georgia could lose to Ole Miss, or Ole Miss is done. We won't be talking about them anymore, and we're going to eliminate the 16th team in the country. But I think, and Oregon and Georgia's still alive if they lose this game. So I like Ole Miss to win this game. Miami going into Georgia Tech is not a sure thing. Georgia Tech, I know, is not playing as good as what we thought early in the year. When they went in and they beat Florida State over in Ireland, we thought that was such a great signature win. Well, we found out Florida State stinks. But Georgia Tech at home, still dangerous. Key been a great hire for this team since they moved on from Collins middle of last year. Georgia Tech has gotten better. Maybe they've taken a step backward here the second part of the season. But again, Miami's been a team looking to lose. Not a sure thing. Texas should beat up Florida at home. Penn State, Washington. Don't sleep on the Huskies. Tennessee will beat Mississippi State. Indiana should take care of Michigan. BYU going to Utah is no sure thing. Notre Dame gets Florida State. Shouldn't be a problem. Bama and LSU. I think LSU wins. You could very well see Georgia, although I don't know if they'd fall. Yeah, if they lost Ole Miss, they'd likely fall out of it. I think they'd fall out of the playoff for a week if they lost Ole Miss. Miami would stay in. Penn State they're not going to lose. I'm not going to leave them in there. BYU would fall out. Alabama would fall out. You could see 4 of these 12 teams change position this week. As many as. I'm not saying that will happen. But all of those games are in play. BYU, Utah, Alabama, LSU, Georgia, Ole Miss, and maybe even Miami, Georgia Tech. All in play. Big changes. That was a pathetic. I will agree with you there. Arkansas has regressed. Let's put it that way. So maybe based off of the way they started the season, Danny, we could categorize their season as a disappointment because they did get off to a pretty strong start. Their defense was atrocious last week. And again, I know you don't like teams run up the score, but unfortunately, the way the system is designed, when you fall to 16, like Ole Miss has with 2 losses, or like Notre Dame did by losing to Northern Illinois, you now need style points. You now need to run up scores. That's just the way the system's built. And I don't have a problem with it, except don't do it to the Naval Academy or the any of the military academies, I should say. CA, Saturday's biggest screen slate, Florida, Texas. Well, it's not the number one, but Florida's played better than expected, I guess, under Billy Napier. They've had a really tough schedule. They're 4-4, but I would get ready for the bottom to fall out on Florida about now. Texas will thump them. Georgia, Ole Miss, we've talked about. Alabama, LSU, BYU, Utah. All very good games. No way Miami's in the Final Four. I wouldn't argue with that at this point for sure. That's part of the argument I just made. So, yes, I agree, Danny. Carson Beck in Georgia. GE stock went down. I didn't know they had GE stock. No, both their stock has gone down. But they're still, here's the thing. This is how good Georgia is. Even when Georgia's not as good as we think they are, or they're not as good as we're used to them being, they're still the 3rd ranked team in the country. Right? Paul Spada, hello. Yes, we talked about your Oregon Ducks a bit. 18 playoff with no buys would have been not. Well, I disagree. much less chance for unfair matchups and seedings. Where's the unfair matchup? Let me look. Let me show you. Let me tell you what this. Hang on. Let me see if I can find it. Here we go. This should give me my bracket. Just give me my bracket. Yeah, here we go. So right now, here's the bracket. CA, this is a 12-team bracket. First round games. You tell me what's a bad matchup here. So again, Oregon, BYU, Georgia, and Miami all have byes. Here's the 8 teams that are playing first week. Tennessee, Indiana. That's a great matchup. Ohio State, Boise State. Now, that's the one you'll tell me stinks. But that's also the matchup you still would have gotten with an 18 playoff. You're not going to cut the group of 5 out. Group of 5 is never getting cut out of whatever playoff you have from here on out, unless they go back to 4. The group of 5 will never be cut out of it. Penn State, Notre Dame. That's a pretty good matchup. Texas, Alabama. How about that matchup? So that brings you, let's just say Indiana beats Tennessee. You got Oregon, Indiana. Possible rematch of the playoff, the conference championship game. BYU would play Ohio State. Sounds like a pretty good game to me. I'm going to say Notre Dame would play Georgia. Looks like a pretty good game to me. And Notre Dame would be in that 18 playoff, most likely, by the way. CA. Again, if they finish with 1 loss. Texas beats Alabama. They play Miami. That looks like a pretty good matchup. Miami, Texas. And again, you're not the only one who's talked about 8 teams would be better. I think 16 teams would be better. At the risk of having another lawsuit thrown at me, like Basement Bob. I sound angry tonight. I'm not really angry. I'm just fired up, back from vacation, full of energy. I never got the argument for 8 teams, and it won't happen because the SEC and the Big Ten want more teams in there. They're never going to go for an 18 playoff. Notre Dame's never going to go for an 18 playoff. Never. Never vote for it. Never, ever, ever. So 16 teams is the way to go in my mind. All 10 conference champions get in. All 10 conference champions get in, and you get 6 at-larges. Let's have some fun. Why is it a bad matchup? Don't we love the NCAA basketball tournament? Don't we look for those early round upsets? Don't we love them? Why wouldn't we want to root for one of those here? Again, the only bad matchup I see it is 12-team potential matchup as it stands now, and this won't be it. This is very unlikely to be the 12 teams we get. But Boise State, let's not forget, I told you Boise State and Ohio State is a bad matchup. Boise State's this close to getting a bye. Boise State's better than you think. Watch them play on a Friday night. Watch them play like they did last week against UNLV. They got one of the top 5 players in the country in Giante. He might be the second contender right now for the Heisman. To me, Cam Ward's in first. I think Giante's second. I think Travis Hunter's third. You could make an argument that Kurt Rudder, what's his name? The kid from Curtis Rourke from Indiana, I think could be sliding up a little bit. Wins are going to matter there. And Jackson Dart's still in competition. Boise State is a better football team than you think. Watch Giante play. Watch this team run the football. I don't think there'll be bad matchups. I think, that's not to say there won't be a blowout. You can have a blowout any game, any week. Texas A&M just got blown up by South Carolina. There's going to be blowouts we don't see coming. Ole Miss loses to Georgia. What is that GE in there? Well, Lane Kiffin, as I said, Danny, this is his chance to avoid that label. As much as I love, again, Mike Gundy and Lane Kiffin have been my guys. And Lane Kiffin, I've said all year, is in danger of getting that James Franklin label. What is that GE? Help me out with that. I don't understand. I went to Perth High. Well, there you go. 2-15 against top 10 teams. This is his chance to get rid of that label. I think this is a talented football team. The difference between, here's the difference in why. First of all, I think Ohio State's better than Georgia. And I also think that Ole Miss is better than Penn State. And I will say that at least Mississippi plays a 2020s offense. James Franklin stuck in 1982. I think Lane Kiffin's got a great chance to get off the schneid here. And if he doesn't, well, then again, I won't stick up for him anymore. This might be his best chance yet to beat somebody named Georgia and Alabama or any top 10 team, as Danny points out here. Yeah, I just went through what the matchups would be theoretically, and I think they'd be great matchups. So I got to disagree with you there, CA, unfortunately. Again, even that Ohio State-Boise matchup in that first round, as it stands today, is not a bad football game. It'd be fun to watch. Could it end up in a blowout? Yes. But everybody wants to root for David against Goliath, don't they? At least early in the tournament? Always. Give the 9 to Rice. Memphis covers. I wouldn't bet that game with your money, CA, but I like Memphis. Memphis is a good football team. 16 playoff in 5 years, no doubt. Money. But listen, I'm only in it for a 16-team playoff, not so that I can see 6 SEC teams in it. By the way, Danny, I am only in favor of a 16-team playoff under the conditions that I have that I stole from Basement Bob and about 1,000 other people. 10 champions of 10 conferences all get buys, not buys, automatic bids. And 6 at-large teams, you can take them from wherever you want. You can take all the SEC teams if you want. No, one of them will be Notre Dame, so there'll be 5 most years. Probably will never happen because we don't want to give the little guy a chance. We don't want to spread a pie that thin. The SEC and the Big Ten want it all for themselves. You might see a 16-team playoff in 5 years, Danny, that consists all of Big Ten and SEC teams because it might break off on their own still. There's still that possibility they expand further and break off. I don't want to get into off-the-field stuff, though. The G is the Georgia flag on my end. Ah, cool. Oh, that's cool. Look at that. 16 with no buys was second choice. And I'd be for that. I'm not a big fan of the buys, so I get that. That part I get. See, I'm not a huge fan of the buys. I don't agree with the bad matchups. You would get some bad matchups under my. I shouldn't say bad. You would get some blowouts probably under my. Not my. I'll get sued if I say mine. Under the playoff plan that I agree with, not mine, the one I agree with. All the conference champions getting in and getting a shot. I love the NCAA tournament because all the conference champions get in, all of them. And you only got 10 to deal with here. So you still got plenty of at-larges. The second choice as for the multitude of questions why 8, too much to write, we'll hopefully get a chance after New Year's. listen, again, it's not going to happen. They're never going backwards now. I mean, the SEC and the Big Ten are already lobbying to get more teams in the 12-team tournament. Automatic bids. Then it becomes a participation trophy. I had this argument with John DeLon, and God, I hope he's okay, because John hasn't been here to stick up for himself this year. And I do hope he's okay. I just hope he got tired of the show and decided not to tune in anymore. So, John, you're out there. We wish you well. We hope you're okay. Miss our debates. But this is not a participation trophy tournament. Even the 16-team playoff format that I back is not a participation trophy tournament when you have to earn your way in for an automatic bid by winning your conference. And you have to win X amount of games to get in. We're not giving trophies to everybody that gets in. Danny, what do you got here? In 5 years, you might have only 8. Well, we might have 4. Well, we're going to go back to 11. Next year, we're going back to 11. So, we should take a look around the conferences real quick. Actually, what time is it? Let's take a quick look around the conferences, and we'll look at the picks. What do you got here, CA? Scott's been on. Scott Colby. We do hope Scott's doing okay. Scott's got some health issues. Scott Colby, a fine contributor to the show. As some other guys have had. We've had a lot of guys with some health issues this year, and we wish all of them well. We know our good buddy Rick. I don't know where Rick is tonight, defending his Georgia Bulldogs, Danny. But Rick is coming along well. And anybody's had issues, we certainly wish them well, and our thoughts and positive energy is always with you. And Scott Colby had let me know that he was going through some serious stuff right now. And Scott's a great friend of the show, great content he provides. Let's Talk Sports. Great picker of not even just, football and basketball, but tennis. This guy can pick a winner in any sport, I swear to God. And we hope Scott's doing well. He has started picking the games again, so hopefully he's doing well. Let's go around the conferences a little bit since we're talking about conference races. Let's go all the way around them. We talked about a couple already. Let me start at the top with the American. The American is not out of this yet, by the way. Army and Tulane are undefeated. Army's number 25 in the first college football poll. Their only path in is to win the AAC championship and get ranked higher than Boise. Those are the only two Group of 5 schools that are ranked currently. Tulane's a good football team too. Don't count them out. They've got 2 losses overall. Army still undefeated. Army will play. Who did I say they were playing this week? A tough Northern Texas team. Army should win this game. And Army doesn't play the best schedule in the world. Don't get me wrong. Army will probably get beat up pretty good by Notre Dame in a couple of weeks. But that game will not really mean that much. If they can keep it close, it could help them. If Boise were to lose a couple of games, which is unlikely, they probably have to lose a regular season game and then lose in a conference championship game for Army to get by them. Unless Army runs the table and Boise loses 1, then there's a possibility. But you've got Army, Navy still alive for the AAC championship along with Tulane. The ACC, as I said, Miami and SMU, one of the biggest surprises in the country in my mind, sitting alone at the top at 5-0. Clemson could still sneak into the championship game. Pittsburgh could still sneak in there. But I think these two teams are likely on a collision course, Miami and SMU. Big 12, we've talked about a lot. BYU now sits alone, undefeated at the top. But you got Colorado and Iowa State right behind him with one loss. It's going to be interesting. Listen, I had Deion 5-7 this year again. Or actually, or what were they last year? 4-8. 6-2. 4-1 in the conference. Deion has a chance to be in the playoff in year 2 in Colorado. I said he had to win games at some point. He's winning games. What more am I supposed to ask of the guy? I think it's a 3-team race. You could see Texas Tech is going to be a tough matchup for Colorado this week, though. I think Texas Tech wins that game. The Big Ten, we've already talked about a bit. Indiana and Oregon tied atop the conference at 6-0, both undefeated. I think there's only 5 undefeated teams left in the country right now. Ohio State, Penn State sit back there with one loss lurking in championship possibility. Conference USA, not going to be any kind of contender for the playoff this year. Western Kentucky, Jacksonville sit atop at 4-0. Surprisingly, Liberty 3-2 in the conference and 5-2 overall. Sam Houston Bearcats early in their NCAA FBS 1 career, 7-2 overall, 4-1 in the conference. Congratulations to them. Independents, there are really very few of these anymore. There's Notre Dame, and then there's Connecticut, who has won a couple in a row again, 6-3. Competitive, interesting team under Jim Mora. Nothing to get excited about. They're never going to beat good teams. But they're better than UMass for sure. UMass actually has 2 wins and I think are not the worst team in the country. That would fall to Kent State. In the next conference, we're talking about the MAC. Western Michigan, who's playing tonight, as CA mentioned, sitting atop at 4-0. Bowling Green, Miami at 4-1. Ohio 3-1. The surprisingly mediocre Toledo Rockets, only 3-2, 6-3 overall. I'm going to take Miami of Ohio and Western Michigan to play in a championship game as we speak today. Mountain West, again, better than people give it credit for. Boise State sitting atop with their Heisman Trophy candidate, Giante, leading the way. 6 wins in a row, 1 loss on a last-second field goal at Oregon. That's this team's only loss, guys. Same team Ohio State lost to by more than that. They're 4-0. Colorado sits at 4-0. It's possible Vegas gets themselves back into the conference championship race, but they would not probably that would be a good scenario for Army. Army finds a way to, let's say, lose to Notre Dame and win all the rest of the games in the conference championship. Boise loses the conference championship and maybe one other game. That's how Army's going to get themselves in. The Pac-12, very, very close. Both teams tied at 0-0. But Washington State, by the way, is an interesting case. They're 7-1, playing really good football. 3 wins in a row. 21 in the first playoff poll. But no conference, no championship to play, no big signature wins on their resume. And it's a shame. This is a good football team. The Southeast Conference, Georgia and Texas A&M, as I said, sit on top at 5-1. Tennessee and Texas and LSU sit right behind them at 4-1 and 3-1. Big game for LSU. They keep themselves in the playoff hunt. The playoff hunt and the conference championship hunt with a win this week over Alabama, who sits at 3-2 in conference right now. The Sun Belt, again, no competition for anything from the group of 5 here. Georgia Southern and Louisiana Raging Cajuns seem like they're about going to play. That's the only, let's see, Just them. That's the only team left in the country. I'm sorry, the only conference left in the country with divisions. Everybody else has done away with them. And in this one, you could get, they're going to play a conference championship game East against West. Oh, what do you got here, Danny? 4-4 NIU versus 5-3 Western Michigan, 7-7. Terrible football. Well, the MAC, listen, the MAC is not it's usually competitive football. Is it always exciting? No, it's not. Let's look at our ESPN Pick'em results here. I think this is the one you did not get in, Danny, by the way. I think you got the pro one and never got in this one. But let's see where we did last week. Week 10. Keith was at the top with 7 wins out of 10 games last week. Good job. Probably creeping up on the leaders as well, by the way. Neil and Beamer Ball had 6 winners. Our two, the Sports Nuts. I feel like I should know the Sports Nuts. His birthday just came up. He's a friend of on my personal page, and I just don't know who it is. I don't know if he's come in the show. I don't know what's going on with these guys or the ESPN generic contender here. Poppy's picks. Kenny's had 5 wins last week. Paul had 5 wins. Another generic guy had 5 wins. And Scott, looks like last week Scott didn't get any picks in. He did just 1 week. It's 7 wins a week he got in. We do hope Scott's doing well. Good friend of the show. Good guy in general. Overall, we have still the generic ESPN guy has 63. The Sports Nut has 61. Then Keith has 57. Neil has 57. Paul right by there with 55. It's a pretty close race. Rick at 51. And then we get to Kenny at 500 at 45. And Scott, unfortunately, will not be able to catch up. He missed many weeks. Here's Keith's picks this week of the ESPN games. And we'll go through some other games quickly that I like this week. Some fun games to watch. I don't know. Again, who I'll bet is a different story, right? Even some of these teams I could pick against them depending on the spread, right? I like Navy over South Florida. South Florida is 4-4. The trend is for Navy. Navy's going to come back in a big way from that loss, bad loss to Notre Dame. I like, even though I like Syracuse, I like McCord, I like the new coach. I like a lot of things about what's happened up in Syracuse. 6-2 overall. I'm going against the trend here and taking the home Boston College Eagles. You can see their home field right behind me as you watch this show. I'll take Bill O'Brien and the Eagles in this game. I'm going to take Ole Miss to finally get off the schneid against a top-ranked team and beat Georgia at home. I'll take Army and that electric offense on the road against North Texas. The Mean Green of North Texas. There was some movie. What was the movie? Was it with Scott Bakula? Danny, I think you might be able to help me out here. Wasn't there a team called the Mean Green? Or was it the Mean Machine I'm thinking of from The Longest Yard? I feel like it was a Green Machine, too. There was a movie with Sinbad and Scott Bakula about this college. I probably don't know what the hell I'm talking about. I'm going to buck a trend big time here. Iowa State, who had their first loss last week, is going to Kansas. Kansas has been one of the biggest disappointments, not just in the Big 12, but maybe in the country. They're ranked in the top 20 for the first time in a long time this year to start a season. Lance Leopold was a great coach. Daniel's a great quarterback. It's all falling apart. They're only 2-6 or 2-6 or 2-5. 2-6 on the year. I'm going against a big trend. 96% going with Iowa State here. I'm taking Kansas at home with a major upset in the Big 12. Iowa State and Matt Campbell, this team tends to fade later in the year. I like Kansas here. Trap game. Clemson, I'll take the bounce back over Virginia Tech at home. Tough to play in Blacksburg, but I'll take Clemson on the road here. I'm going to take Texas Tech Raiders. I'm going against the trend here, too, and take them over number 20, Colorado. Vanderbilt, I'll take over South Carolina. South Carolina, very up and down. Sean Beamer's done a great job there, but I'm going to take Vanderbilt here. Vanderbilt, very surprising team at 6-3. As I said before, I'll take LSU and maybe the matchup of the week. Number 11 Alabama and number 15 LSU. I will take LSU here. That's against the trend a little bit as well, and I think the trend here is a little high. BYU 94% taking BYU over the Utah Utes. Kyle Whittingham is a really, really good coach. This team's just 4-4. They tend to get better as the season goes on. This is not as talented a Utah team as we've seen in the past. BYU's been one of the bigger surprises in the country. I will take BYU to win this game as well. All right. You got the kiss of death from me, James. LSU may not beat Bama, even at home in Death Valley. I'm not trusting Nussmeier in a crucial moment, i.e. the Texas A&M loss. I understand it. James got it for me. Necessary roughness. What a great call there, James. Did you look that up or did you know that, by the way? Did you say Scott Bakula football movie or Sinbad football movie? Or did you know this? It's not a good movie, but it's a good movie, if you know what I mean. There are bad movies that I gravitate to. This is one of them. Necessary roughness. James, great job there, buddy. That's why I have the best audience out here. You guys know stuff that we got no business knowing. Let me go through the schedule a little bit and see what other exciting games we're looking at. Right now, Ohio's leading Kent State. I said Kent State's the worst team in the country. It's not an exaggeration. They're down 20-0 before halftime. NIU is up 14-7 over Western Michigan. Bowling Green 23-13. All these games were yesterday. I knew there were games yesterday. The MAC plays. They play all their games Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Bowling Green beat Central Michigan. Miami of Ohio beat Ball State. Tomorrow, App State, Coastal Carolina. CA mentioned this game. Better game than you think. Cal and Wake Forest, kind of interesting. Wake Forest, in the midst of a rebuilding couple of years, got to 4-4, 2-2 in the conference. This team's playing better football. I like Wake Forest, +7 at home. Cal's had to travel across the country a lot this year. Cal's a good football team, but they're 0-4 in the conference. I like Wake in this spot at home. Iowa goes to UCLA. Yeah. Rice and Memphis, they're 9-point favorite here. I don't know what CA had them at before, but I would like Memphis in that game probably. Miami goes to Georgia Tech. As I said, this is the game to watch out for. Miami's 11-point favorite on the road. They found a way to cover a 21-point spread last week, being down 11 in the third quarter. They outscored them 36-3, I think, from that point on. Notre Dame's got a big number against Florida State. How often has Florida State been 26.5-point underdogs? Ohio State and Purdue, easy win for Ohio State. Texas and Florida. Texas should win for fun. Rutgers, Minnesota, interesting game. Rutgers has fallen off a bit since a pretty good start, a good start for Greg Schiano's team, especially in the Big Ten. Now they're 1-4 in the Big Ten. Minnesota 4-2, 6-3. PJ Flesch is a good football coach. This team is a decent football team. 6 on a road, though, kind of tough. BC, I think that might be a wager. Not sure. Maybe the over 53.5 in the Syracuse BC game. I never know what I'm going to get. Again, in a cigar box, we get 10. He'll put the Friday games in a lot of times. But he'll have about 10 games on Saturday we can pick from. Never know what they're going to be. West Virginia, Cincinnati. They're two middling teams in the Big 12. Navy goes to South Florida. Liberty goes to Middle Tennessee. UConn at 6-3 plays UAB. Trent Dilfer's in trouble at UAB, by the way. 2-6 overall. Georgia, we said, goes to Ole Miss, Michigan, and Indiana. You would think this would be a big favorite the other way. Indiana's a 14-point favorite against Michigan. Indiana's been blown out everybody they play. Michigan is not Michigan right now. That's a big line. Oh, man, I might lay it. Kansas will get 3 at home against Iowa State. I like Kansas in that game. I'm not going to bet it. Clemson goes to Virginia Tech and lays 6.5. That's a tough place to lay almost a touchdown. Army a 5.5-point favorite on the road at North Texas. I'm going to take Army in that game. Duke and North Carolina State. By the way, how many times? This is how good Army and Navy has gotten. Army, the over-under here is 63.5. What's Army Navy going to be when they play? I can remember years the over-under was like 29. It's going to be 68. Duke and North Carolina State. Again, a couple of middling ACC teams. Colorado against Texas Tech. This is a big Big 12 matchup. One of these teams will be eliminated. I think Texas Tech probably already is eliminated from Big 12 championship contention with the teams in front of them. Colorado, they win this week, then I will start to think they're the real deal. I'm already starting to think that, I guess. Temple, Tulane will win that game. South Carolina goes to Vanderbilt. That's a sneaky good game. South Carolina is a 3.5-point favorite on the road, I should say. Watch out. I love those home dogs. Arkansas State at Louisiana. Interesting game there in the Sun Belt. 4-0 against 3-1. Mississippi State will get trashed by Tennessee. Oklahoma State, 10.5-point underdog to TCU. 0-6 in the Big 12 is Oklahoma State. One of the favorites to win this conference. I picked them to win this conference. Mike Gundy's one of my all-time favorites. The string may be running out for Mike Gundy. Bama and LSU, huge game. Alabama, 3 This is why, James, this is why I got to love your team. I got to love your team. Getting 3 at home at night in the swamp. Oklahoma goes to Missouri. Oklahoma should not be a 2.5-point favorite over anybody on the road. Missouri is somehow still ranked, not playing good football. This team was ranked in the top 8, I think, to start the season. Washington, sneaky team to be careful of for Penn State, coming off a tough loss to Ohio State. They're a 13-point favorite at home. Washington might keep that game close. Boise State should roll. They're a 24-point favorite over Nevada. Might take the over in that game, 60.5. Although that game's not going to be on our card. Virginia and Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh off a beating by SMU last week. Vegas will go out to Hawaii. They're a 13.5-point favorite on the road. Fresno goes to Air Force. Air Force, maybe the worst year Troy Calhoun's ever had coaching this team. Air Force usually very competitive, 1-7, 0-4 in conference. BYU goes to Utah. We've already talked about this game. I wouldn't bet it -4 on the road for BYU. Wouldn't do it. And then you get Washington State. We'll get another win against Utah State this weekend. So some big stuff going on. What do you got here? Army does need Daly back for sure, but I think they'll beat North Texas either way. For them to have a chance against Notre Dame, that's probably another game I'll bet over when it comes up. That's what I did with Navy against Notre Dame. I didn't like the spread of the game. I didn't want to have to root for a blowout. I just wanted to root for points, and that's probably what I'll do with Army and Notre Dame as well in a couple of weeks. So, what do you got here? I knew it. Boy, me, and you. I could almost hear. I could almost hear Sinbad there. Oh my God! Any other news we need to talk about? We still got about. We got a few minutes. Or I'll wrap it up. I don't know yet. Let's see. Let me just look and see what kind of news we got. Gundy, sorry for ripping critical Oklahoma State fans. You know, when you're as bad as you are, you're going to get booed and you're going to get, you know, stuff happens. What is this? Clemson coach Dabo Swinney blocked from voting in election. It's been a rough few days for Dabo. First, he got killed. So Dabo, whose given name is William, explained that the voting system had him locked out, saying William Swinney had already voted last week. Swinney said it was his oldest son, Will, and not him. They done voted me out of the state, Swinney said. We're 6-2, 5-1 in Atlantic Conference, man. They done shipped me off. Well, I'm going to say your vote didn't matter anyway, Dabo, but I probably know which way you would have gone. Interesting story, though. USC is benching Miller Moss, and they're going to start Jaden Malava, who's a UNLV transfer. Lincoln Riley may very well be coaching for his job here the rest of the season. Not long ago, ranked number 11 in the country, and they're now 4-5. What else we got here? Oh. Do we care? Do we really care? I don't think we do. Let me look at the mailbag real quick. That's always fun to. Oh, we have no problem. Maybe we can't. Here we go. Yeah, I'm not going to get into too much of this stuff here. Based on BYU being ranked number 9 by the committee, can we assume it would be out of the playoff with a loss? No, you can't say that because they could win the Big 12 conference, right? I mean, they're not out of it as long as you've got a conference championship game to play in. Nobody's out of it that can play in a conference championship game. Nobody. Do we think Penn State finally could make the leap with a different coach like Georgia did, going from Mark Richt to Kirby Smart? Or is James Franklin maxing it out? I don't know who's going to turn around at Penn State. I mean, maybe too much is expected out of a program like Penn State in these days. Some of these schools who used to really dominate recruiting in their areas, it's happened to the Florida teams. It's happened to Penn State in the Northeast because, again, you've got all the Big Ten teams coming in there and recruiting those kids. That's what happens when you join a league, and it gets tough. Benching your quarterback at the University of Spoiled Children is the least of your problems, Lincoln. That's for sure. I do think Lincoln. I think Deshaun Foster will outlast Lincoln Riley in the City of Angels. Would be my guess. Shout out to Ginger Warfield out there. Augustin hasn't commented tonight, but he's here. John Gonzalez has been around. Robert Butler's been around. He's probably live now. We didn't get a chance to say goodbye to our Northeast Streaming Sports audience, but that's okay. And Ashton Nix has been out watching today. I just was looking at a couple people who may have been hanging around but not commenting. What do you got here? SMU lost to BYU, holding them to 18-15, as we talked about earlier. They don't play again till the 16th, hosting BC, which they'll win. They're at Virginia. They'll win. That'll be a tougher game than you think, maybe. Then Cal, tough trip out west, but I think they win. So I've been saying tonight and for the last couple of weeks. Well, I thought Clemson was in the mix, but I thought SMU had moved themselves into the mix. Last week I said there was 4 teams in the mix for the ACC championship. It was Miami, Clemson, Pittsburgh, and SMU, and Clemson and Pittsburgh pretty much eliminated themselves last week, although Pitt's still alive. Clemson theoretically is alive too if Miami or SMU falter. But it's a good conference, and SMU is a really, really good football team. John Gonzalez is the man. How many better groups, and I don't mean any disrespect to any of the other groups I share this show to. The Sports Authority is one of the best groups out there. John does some great stuff with old school stuff. If you like nostalgia, John posts some great stuff. He voted orange. So there's that. Anyway, great show tonight, guys. We're going to wrap it up. And hopefully Facebook. Now Facebook's also got me. My phone has no access, so I probably won't get to share the show till tomorrow, maybe at the soonest. But at least doing the show on Wednesday nights, we have a chance to do that. So, thank you, CA. Oh, we enjoyed it. We had such a good time. This is one of the best trips we've had. I'll tell you. I love the Venencia. It's a little different than the other Carnival ships. It gets this Italian feel to it. It was a lot of fun. And, we'll be back. Let's see. We're actually cheating on Carnival in February. We'll be on the celebration. We'll be on We'll be on Celebrity. I don't know what ship. We'll be on a 11-dayer then. And then next September, we're going to be on the Mardi Gras for the first time and traveling to Barcelona from Cape Canaveral. Can't wait. We're going to have fun. Guys, thanks. Keith Engle for TGI Sports Talk. I appreciate all of you for your time and your effort and your comments and making this show so much fun for me to do. Keith Engle for TGI Sports Talk's College Football Huddle. We'll see you on Friday. Friday morning, by the way. Now that I think about it. Friday morning is going to be you guys and your comments. I'm going to give you 2 minutes or 3 minutes to come in, say your piece. I'll be quiet because we don't have an interview lined up because Keith's been slacking on vacation. So it's going to be your guys' time to shine. We appreciate you, Davey. Thanks so much. I love the interaction we have with you guys. Have a great night, guys. Enjoy the game.